Good morning, everybody. I'm your host today, and I'm going to be very sick and sound like a bullfrog, so my apologies. So we don't have anything really deep in the agenda. If anybody wants to add stuff, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll make it short because I really don't feel well. And give people a minute to get started.
From my side, I had a question about VMSS support. I was following up one. So I was following up this issue. I'm just trying to see if this is the special one or not, and if for status wise, or if we want to help or contribute, because VMSS seems to be one thing we definitely need to move towards, and not even for cluster scaling, but just to get rid of availability set, because we're getting issues provisioning big clusters with AS, with capacity and stuff. So they've recommended that using the VMSS with the cross-cluster option would probably allow us to create bigger clusters. Now I'm trying to see if that's the right place to get the status of what's left.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it. I think Cal can probably go into some detail here, but part of the difficulty is with the nodes and what volumes they can support or not support. And also there's a way that you can't pick which nodes are deprovisioned when it scales down. So there's some challenges architecturally in the cross between VMSS and the way Kubernetes handles the scaling. So Cal, do you know a little bit about this? Did you want to kind of mention anything on that, or does that sound right? Sorry to put you on the spot, buddy.
You're on mute, Cal.
I started talking like an idiot. Good morning, guys. The first thing is the unique storage profile per node on a VM scale set. This is currently in a preview mode, and we're not sure yet that everything works. We've been testing it. The second important thing is when you scale a VM scale set down, you don't have a lot of control over which node gets off or gets taken off from the scale set. Both of them we have a couple of guys working on. I have a meeting probably early next week where I can get more details about this and try to open up the work for everybody to see and get early feedback on it. By next meeting, I should have more details on how to get more contribution on it and more work done on it. Does this make sense to you?
So where is the place that I could get the statuses? Let's say we put aside auto scaling, because let's say I don't care about auto scaling. I just want to be able to provision a cluster with X many nodes using VM scale set. I've seen people trying it and having success now that they added the disk support. Mm-hmm. But is there anything else from the list of from the link that I pasted? It says like support concurrent creation of service resources, LB rules, LB probes, LB front-end IP, NSG rules, all this. Is it just for auto scaling, or it's really just in general and it won't work at all, like PV and
in general? So every look at it this way: every touch point between Kubernetes and the cloud via the cloud provider, and I would say via the C advisor as well, which actually sits on top of the cloud provider, will need to be reviewed once we change to VM scale set. Because the way we do load balancing rules are different, the way we do NSGs might be different, and so forth. Okay. So This is the work happening. The saddest thing about what this discussion is, I don't have the link for the code, right? The current code being worked on. I promise you, I'll have it and post it later on sometime.
Is this open source, or like can we help to accelerate, or it's really internal and it's Azure API that needs to be
No, nothing internal about this, and we should be able to see it, right? We should be able to look at it and everything. There is nothing internal about this code, nothing Microsoft about this code. Everything is open sourced and it should be there. I will work on getting you the link.
Cool.
Right.
So I mean, for sure, after the Christmas holidays or New Year's, we'll probably reassess and maybe pull in like one person to help. So if we could, well, I'll sync up with you offline, maybe get a place where we could follow up on what's left, where can we help and whatnot, because I think it's going to be something very important for us. So.
Let me put it in a different way. Our plan is to get this by 110.
110. Yeah, that's what I've seen from the link I posted. Now it's it looks like it's a 110 milestone.
It is a 110, all right, and that includes along with the out of 3 provider.
Okay, sure. Yeah, big scope change. Okay.
So we're trying to get this ready by 110 for everybody, because frankly speaking, everybody needs it along with Microsoft own services running on Kubernetes.
And 110 is
code freeze somewhere code freeze is somewhere in March.
Yeah, March, early March.
Okay, cool.
And we actually do need to, I don't know how to schedule this yet, but we do need to do a 110 planning session. So we sketch these things out and prioritize and find out who's going to work on what, and then write up issues to track that work.
Yes.
So yeah.
I have a mini plan somewhere. If you want to discuss, we can discuss it now if you want.
We could. I just I'm so sick. Like I can't even think straight. I don't feel like I'm giving you my best self right now.
So Jace, I tossed out some dates via email. Perhaps we can do 1-4 or 1-5.
Yeah.
Or extend the January 10th meeting to maybe an hour or so and do the planning then.
Let's do that. Can we just say January 10th we're going to do it? And we've got an offsite at that time, but I think we can take an hour. That's a pretty important thing. So.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so let me make a note on my calendar. I also have the trouble of a lot of my SIG stuff is in one calendar, in the Google Calendar, and then also in the Outlook or my Microsoft calendar. So makes calendaring hard. Yeah, I know. So let me put a note here on the 10th, just so I don't forget. Cool. Yeah, well, we can extend that an hour.
Yeah. Jace, when should we expect 1.9 to be out?
Friday.
All right. This Friday.
Nice. Although there's some scary downgrade test issues that are coming up. So we're not completely sure that that's 100% yet.
All right.
12 to 1. Okay. Sorry, I'm just adding this in my calendar so I don't forget. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll send out a notice in the mailing list to let people know that that's going to be planning time, and we'll hopefully get more folks from Microsoft and Red Hat and Ware to show up, because we're kind of lightly populated at the moment. Okay, so quick bit of news. I had some great meetings with people at KubeCon regarding the cloud provider breakout. So we're actually mobilizing a pretty strong group effort on that. So I've got contacts now across all the clouds. So we're going to hopefully be able to do more in the working group. And it looks like people are going to try for at least some sort of alpha/beta implementations in 110. I would love to have us be ahead of the pack. So as Cal mentioned, that we have a pretty good working version by the end of 1.10. And we're just trying to synchronize on the Microsoft side about what that looks like, who's working on it internally, and so forth. But I'll be meeting with the Google team during the week of the offsite. I'm actually going to be staying in Mountain View, just so that I can facilitate some of these spot meetings with people at Google to talk about how they've implemented it and some of the anti-patterns they've run into. So that'll help ideally save us some time. I also found out, and this is really good news, is that if we have any troubles with the internal hosting of the repo, the Cloud Native Compute Foundation has offered to give us repos in the CNCF org and give us 100% ownership and management of them. So essentially we can bypass having to do all the controls and stuff that we might have to do if we had it hosted internally in Microsoft. So sort of a plan A, plan B there. And I'm kind of on the fence. I would in some ways, I'd like to have it under the Microsoft control, but it also feels like it might be better if it's in CNCF. So we'll see how that rolls out.
Is there a reason that we didn't do something like create a Kubernetes cloud providers repo instead and have everyone toss their providers in there?
Well, so the idea is simply decoupling totally. So if we did that under the Kubernetes org, it would mean you'd have dozens of cloud providers in there, and they want to treat this like any other extension point. So, like for example, for CSI, CNI, so forth, that the drop off point for the Kubernetes borderline is at the cloud provider controller. So the controller manager is basically handing off to some external repo, and they don't want that necessarily to be the Kubernetes org.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, I think. So,
Chase, is it more about avoiding the legal hassle at Microsoft, or is it more about the appearance of where the repo lives in terms of community-based CNCF stuff?
I think it's a little both. I mean, the last I heard that CeeLo was the Microsoft legal team was reviewing the current implementation. Google also is having the same problem where, the concern is all sorts of like indemnity around taking code in-house that's, we didn't write. So I understand why that's a pretty unusual move to do that kind of transfer. So they're trying to look it over and make sure that it makes sense. But if that's a blocker, then we can simply just go for a CNCF repo. So the good news is that we're not blocked, right? We can move forward however we need to. For 1.9, I have been so out of it. I have not looked. Is there anything that we need to call out as far as all this work that went into the Azure load balancers and whatnot that needs to go in release notes?
No, oh yes, I sent you an email about this. So a bunch of the guys I work with did modification for how the load balancer and energy work on the cloud provider, just to give everybody in sync, to keep everybody in sync. What we did is we had a problem with the first solving a bug, which was leaking resources. Sometimes when you remove a service, if you're the controller, if the cloud provider is under stress, it would leak resources, as in your configuration is not completely removed for the load balancer. So we fixed that, and it's currently merged in 1.9. The second thing we did is we enabled people to use multi-load balancers, and that's crucial because people can use, and I don't mean internal and external availability set. I mean people can have multiple availability set, and then the cloud provider will use them all to expose your services to the outside world. That's also important for people using like large number of services. And this scales linearly, basically. More services, add more availability sets.
Okay.
The third thing we did is the NSG consolidation. There was around the number of possible NSG rules and all of that. There is a bit of discussion here, but the idea is the NSG rule now are cleaner, more concise, and they are consolidated. So if the rule is there, then you don't really to create a rule that does the same thing. Hence, it pollutes the NSG configuration.
Okay.
All of this gone. I have people like the people I work with created this, and I was thinking yesterday or the day before, all right, how can we do docs for these things, because they are very specific to Azure.
Yeah, so we need to get it in release notes first and foremost. And second is we need to put in a docs pull request into the Kubernetes.io.
Can you respond to the email I sent you, and then I can take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I'll take a look and see if I can find it. Sorry, I'm so behind.
Don't worry. Just everybody's behind. It's holidays, and everybody's going into the snoozing mode. So
yeah. Okay. So let's see. J to follow up with Cal. Okay. Does anybody have any PRs that they need to look at or anything? Obviously, we have the issue from Sylvain earlier. But
I will bring this up. It's obviously not a hidden information that we use Kubernetes in Microsoft heavily.
Yeah.
We relatively use some of the very large clusters out there. And we have discovered a bunch of things in the cloud provider that needs some work.
Yes.
Around throttling the way it would talk to ARM.
Right.
So for 110, we have a new work stream around number of calls going to ARM and are they needed or not. And this is there every touch point, like the email you sent. The link you shared on the shares, Elvin. You will find like every touch point of this, we're doing a lot of calls that aren't necessary. You wouldn't feel a trouble if you are using 5, 10, 20 nodes. But once you go crossing the 300 mark or 200 mark, you still per subscription, you will feel something. So if anybody interested in this, I'll be driving this work. If anybody wants to work on this work, please reach out. I have an email on chat. Just email me.
We should loop in Jack, because Jack did the implementation of the backup code, and
yes. So Jack's code is perfect because it helps when the throttle happens, right? But should we be throttled is the second question. Is the first question, like, should we really be throttled? As in, why do we have, for example, sorry, I am hijacking the meeting, but one of the things, the interesting thing is there's a call every 2 seconds to get machine IP that goes to ARM. And what world would the machine IP change every 2 seconds? Right. So that's just net. Like it's the death by 1,000 cuts, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So all of these things need to be reviewed. With the VM scale set, we should be able to even create bigger clusters on Azure as well. Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the throttling configs actually saved us, because we are at I think we're around 300 per subscription ID now, 300 nodes, and the cluster, the API was just dead. Like we couldn't do anything. So as soon as we apply all those settings, even the node status checks and everything went. So far, it's good, it's stable, but yeah, I'm sure that there's still, like now we're working on adding visibility in our dashboards to see how many requests we're doing to the ARM API. So we'll just have a little like Go client or even a curl on the API, and we'll just save. I think they told us that in the error we can get the number of requests and the limits, and we'll just basically alert if we're near like 80%, or else we're going to lose the cluster, as we've seen. So that's something too. If it would be nice if we could get this like in a more easier way. Just like what's our status like in terms of limitation for ARM or API requests? Because right now we're sort of running in the dark, like we have no clue what's the current status. Even though we apply those throttling settings, we've been told, hey, you might need to adjust them to better assess on your cluster size, but we don't have visibility. And the only thing we have is, oh, it fails, you're being throttled. That's the only thing right now. So
it's a holiday season, so I'm not gonna bullshit you, all right?
Yeah.
There is nobody did the calculation of what's the maximum cluster size on Azure, and nobody did the calculation of what's the maximum number of nodes in mini clusters in one subscriptions on Azure.
That's
So-
not necessarily true, Cal.
Who did it?
Jack did a ton of discovery on building large clusters. So
So
he
I
is
didn't
the
know
he is the authoritative guy to ask about when things are falling down and at what scale.
Do you want to talk, Jack, or do you want to? Jack.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Jack.
He's mute.
We can't hear you, buddy. You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
We went completely into meme format. Like, come on, man.
Those are the worst.
Oh, he dropped off. He's probably gonna reconnect.
It probably they exploded. His head exploded because of the AirPods, I'm sure. Yeah. So Jack, just in the while he's coming back, but yeah, he did a lot of work on this, and frankly, this is something we have to fix because it's embarrassing that we can't support the 5,000 node limit. So yeah, we need to do something about that.
Have you guys tried turning on the instance metadata stuff yet? That Brendan wrote?
Yeah. Right now, actually, if you go and configure provision an ACS engine cluster, you should get it by default.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Like to keep you waiting there. Thanks for bringing up instance metadata, Cole. Yeah, so what I was going to say is that the news has actually gotten a lot better since the last time I spun this loom, which was roughly 200 nodes. I mean, there's a lot of vectors, but the key vector that I was concerned with was the sort of raw noise that comes out of a single node. So ignoring all the subtlety that goes with building different VM SKUs, I was just getting node count effects in terms of ARM throttling. And around 200 is where things started to go south. That should be a lot better now because of instance metadata, which, as Cal said, is enabled by default, but it has, I don't think that's been like fully tested. I haven't given someone a week to mess around with that. But that takes some percentage of the burden away from ARM.
Could we do those tests, Jack? Could you spin those tests up again since you've got all that code already?
I think I could. The only caveat is subscription quota, but I'm not aware that any of that quota has been rescinded, but you never know.
So we've been
find someone with a sub ID with that kind of quota.
We've been running fairly large clusters with instance metadata turned on for, I would say, at least 3 weeks now, and we're fine.
What's fairly large?
Like it's not single large cluster, but multiple clusters in the same subscription.
Yeah, no, that amounts to the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Also for those who are running large clusters, things get compounded, like hammered really bad when you start using services, ALB services, load balancer services. And the reason behind that is the service controller and the controller manager tend to be chatty a bit and just go and pull on the load balancer every so often to try to do reconciliation loops. So if you're running a large cluster without, like I would say 200 or more, if you're not using external load balancer services, with external load balancer services, you need to be careful because it will eat up your quota quite quickly. All goes back to what I was trying to say as a longer term goal. Over 2 releases, we'll probably need to tackle this heavily over the next period and just make it cross the number. Like 200 is nice, 300 is nice. I'm looking for the 2500, which is currently the limit of Kubernetes well-behaving clusters. So that's the limit I have in mind for this.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So I've been looking a lot into Cloud Foundry because Cloud Foundry did some interesting ABs with how they implemented key value storage, and they basically ran into some issues with scale that I want to fully understand. They switched their architecture for their Diego runtime environment over to SQL, and I want to find out. And actually, this is a segue too. Is I'm going to be, unfortunately, I don't know how this happened, but I am now on the etcd working group. So. The etcd is going to become increasingly important, and especially now that nobody really specifically is trying to own it. So that may be something that we look at as well. But needless to say that there's some scaling issues that we're going to have to look at, and this all plays into it. So
the idea is to establish that consensus today, at least, that over a longer term, over span of 2 releases, we will dramatically work out the cloud provider to take us beyond the current limit and keep us on par with the healthy limit of Kubernetes.
Speaking
Right?
of longer
Yeah.
term, though, the instance metadata is a crutch for now because it doesn't really work with the external cloud provider model.
right.
Like,
We're getting there. We're getting there. I know. We're getting
no,
there.
I'm just saying, like, and like once the external cloud provider stuff happens, hopefully we'll have more direct control over that. Like, you know, kubelet calling 2 seconds for the IP. We can do more intelligent things in caching and stuff. It's just that we won't be able to rely on having a local endpoint to hit every 2 seconds.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, and frankly, I really want to have us being able to run the scale EDE tests that Google's running. So, and that is a whole other kettle of fish. We need to actually start booking on creating some end-to-end test suites and make those portable. And we also need to be able to publish our testing results to TestGrid inside the Kubernetes ecosystem so that we can do blocking tests. Because I would consider in the future some sort of correctness test for Azure E2E to be a blocking test, just like it is for GKE. So there's a lot to do there. And that segues into, we have just 3 minutes left, but so our strategy for 2018 is going to be a approach of having not, I'm going to say a fork, but it is not a fork in the traditional sense that we're not going to diverge from master, but what we're going to be doing probably is carrying our own patches for the life cycle of one milestone. So the reason that we want to do this is because there's going to be times where we have impacting changes that the velocity of which need to be implemented faster than we can do with community support. But a key tenet of how we're going to handle that is to do a per milestone reconciliation. So for example, if we can't get it up through the community within the milestone, then we're going to drop it. Or worst case, we have to carry it another milestone. But essentially, we're not going to drift away from head any further than just one point release. So we're going to basically make best effort to do things through the community, and only in cases where we can't bring those patches, or if they can't get through fast enough, would we apply them asynchronously.
It's public repo, and it's public repo. That's very important.
Yep, public. All above board, no crazy, no shenanigans.
That's for the whole Kubernetes or the cloud provider?
For the whole of Kubernetes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say that it will, most of the time it will be even with head. So, so the other side is that to keep that really public, we're going to have those patches and whatnot discussed in SIG Azure. So even though they might, if there's a patch that we need to apply to our own version, we'll still do it publicly in this forum so people can have visibility and also contribute if they want, because we'll need all hands on deck to get those merged in a community and reconciled. So we've got a minute. Anything else anybody wants to say, share before we go?
Happy holidays.
Yay.
Feel better.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Can we use this room, Jace, because the call wants to talk about the
Sure.
yeah, so I'm just going to remain on the room.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll leave it open then.